For the longest time, when you think about Thanksgiving games, when you want to have Thanksgiving, what sport plays on TV?
Football.
Okay. When you think about Christmas Day, what do you think about for the longest time? You know, it's always been basketball.
Always.
I'm sure some of our audience is familiar with the Valuetainment show, as they have had on Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, Bassem Youssef, and many more. And they do this to a very, very wide audience in conservative circles.
This year, it was a different story. So I post a tweet this year. I want to talk about some of the numbers on NFL against the NBA, how the NBA is getting destroyed.
Patrick Bet David would share his tweet on numbers compiled by Front Office Sports. The numbers are, of course, jarring. However, if one has followed the NFL, it is no surprise. Former NBA player Matt Barnes would weigh in and say, the NFL will always be a bigger draw, but thanks for David Stern's vision, NBA players will always be bigger than NFL players. The NBA promotes individuals within the team game. Up until recently, the NFL has always promoted team over individuals. NFL just started promoting individual stars in the last 5 to 7 years. Bet David will make a ridiculous case in a moment, but of importance was from Warren Sharp via Sportico. The NFL had 93 of the top 100 most watched programs in 2022. Its rise simply cannot be stopped at this point. Vincent Oshana would give his take.
How much do you think the way that the NBA handled, with COVID, and then you mentioned this in the tweet, LeBron James being the face of the NBA, King James, during all of Trump's things, his attitude towards Trump, when that girl was shot and killed, I forgot her last name, which, by the way, the cop was exonerated. LeBron James tweeted and called for violence. He goes, "You're next." To the cop. How much of that woke kneeling for the national anthem? Hold on, that anti-American sentiment. Just recently, he walked into to a game, sat on his and didn't do anything. A lesson learned from the Dylan Mulvaney. Well, America. We don't like that crap. We don't like that anti-American stuff. We don't want you pushing your gender crap on beer.
I'll have a lot to say on this shortly because there is so much here. But Patrick Bet David has a reason for the NBA just floundering.
Here's what I will tell you. I think two things are holding the NBA back. LeBron James and Adam Silver, period.
Bingo.
Because David Stern was a boss. You feared him. He was a liberal. He went to Columbia. I believe he went to one of those liberal schools.
Irrelevant, but continue.
So for me, these two guys are part of the problem because Adam Silver fell for a con organization called BLM, and they wrapped BLM all over the place, and we found that afterwards. That was a con job. Okay, those guys fooled you, Adam Silver. And you were naive, and you fell for it. And number two is LeBron James is a divisive face of the NBA. You know, when you think about a face of the NBA, you know who you want? You want somebody like who's that
tall guy?
Who's Giannis. Giannis is you want a Giannis, you want a Brady, you want a Michael, you want a Kobe. LeBron is divisive. He makes the game unattractive. He makes it unattractive to watch, unattractive to follow. I haven't followed the Lakers ever since this guy joined the Lakers.
Some bias here, of course, as PBD puts out on his own YouTube channel this interview with the late Kobe Bean and titles it Kobe Bryant's Last Great Interview.
You know what Jordan did when it came down to an event that happened with cops shooting and back and forth? He gave both, I think it was a Chicago PD and a black nonprofit organization. He gave each of them $5 million. Oh. You know what he's trying to say? Hey, here's where I am. Okay, I support both. LeBron could never, ever. All you have to do is come out and give salute to our military. All you have to do is come out and give a salute to police officers.
Okay, there's a lot to get to here, and I'm going to try to cover all the bases, so bear with me. The NFL beats the NBA in ratings. It's an unfair argument. It's just an unfair argument. The NFL has a desire to watch because even though they have Monday, which they have owned, by the way, for years, and they have Thursday, which still does very, very well, there is a desire for scarcity. They really, if we're being real about it, have Sunday and Sunday night. All day is football. I know I've been doing it since I can remember, quite honestly. Does the NFL have 82 games? If they played 74 times a year in a shortened NBA season, would the ratings still be huge? No. Because there's only so many times that a divisional foe, that you can care about a divisional foe as woesome as the Carolina Panthers coming to town and playing them. It's just a different model. The shortened seasons as well for the NBA, the NHL, they did better. Why? Because the games are more important. They just are. Now, in addition, AS would write, undeniably the NFL dominates the ratings, but it's important to note that comparing its viewership with the NBA's isn't entirely fair. For one, the NBA has 5 times more games in a season than the NFL, which means viewer saturation must be taken into account if we're going to make comparisons. In terms of popularity, both leagues boast a large following, but they appeal to different demographics. The fast-paced and high-scoring nature of NBA games appeals to a younger audience and has a global reach, thanks to social media and star players. Meanwhile, the NFL's physicality and strategic gameplay have a more traditional fan base with a significant following in the U.S. In addition, going back to that Matt Barnes comment, former coworker of mine, works at NBA TV, Roe Parrish brought out something that is very important, especially in this day and age. The social media traction, these statistics when it comes to NFL accounts, NBA accounts, and not just followers, but the amount of views and comments and engagement that is going on, not even throughout the playoffs, just between both leagues. The NBA is very high up there. Now, an important correction on my part. Could the NFL be overtaken at this point in time? No. Of course not. No. It has never been more popular. Statista, though, says maybe it could. There are some signs that football's reign could eventually come to an end, as the sport has struggled to resonate with younger fans in the same way that the NBA has. As the following chart shows, football has already lost its lead to basketball among 18 to 24-year-olds, while retaining a dominant lead in older age groups. In addition, the NBA has been quicker to embrace the change in sports consumption, catering to an audience that is more likely to watch highlight clips on social media than sitting through entire games on ESPN. Let me just also say, and I've said this before, the NBA has started to crack down on YouTube creators, this is wrong, who have used their highlights. This led to humongous growth amongst the younger audience that has grown up now, or at least are later Gen Zers, early millennials, because they watch those highlights, and some of their favorite YouTubers / content creators use actual game footage to illustrate their thoughts. While the NFL has been very far behind on this, and Major League Baseball has been even further behind. The fact that they were talking about Major League Baseball being in the same stratosphere as the NFL and NBA sort of tells me something as well. Now, for some of the comments that Patrick Bet David made, I do believe that there is some recency bias and total bias when he has embraced the, I like the Lakers but hate LeBron. I don't watch the Lakers because of LeBron. These are the same people who have said, we need to not talk about politics in sports. And they use the example of Michael Jordan being apolitical. It's because they're VCs. They're entrepreneurs. Of course they want you to be apolitical. Meanwhile, they're going to talk about wokeness for another hour and a half on the next episode of Valuetainment. Like, him saying, I hate LeBron is the bias of one of the best clips I ever did and a guy that I like and cherish. I'm not saying they didn't have a good relationship. I'm sure they did. But Kobe Bryant was my guy. You know how many times when I was in LA that I heard this? I can't root for LeBron because Kobe's my guy. Why? Why? Are you a fan of the team? Yeah. Isn't it the same school of thought that, like, well, Joakim Noah, he's on my team and I love him, but if he were on the Cleveland Cavaliers, I'd probably hate him. True? Yeah. Don't you want to see your team win? Yeah. Why wouldn't you root for LeBron? It is placating into the conservative rabbit hole of blame LeBron for everything. Blame him for everything. And look, sometimes there are reasons to blame him. But in my opinion, this is tiresome. It is drawn out. Blaming LeBron as the reason for NBA ratings falling. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? While being a clear Kobe stan? Like, come on, dude. We see through this stuff. We totally, at least I do. Blaming LeBron for the NBA having a longer season and comparing it to the NFL, that is ludicrous. And then this whole thought of, why doesn't LeBron give money to the cops? Why doesn't he salute our veterans? Our local municipalities, I think, give enough. And in addition, take up too many resources for things that should be funded, like public schools. Education's a good thing. How about roads? How about funding climate change legislation? Implementing that? How about a high-speed railway? How about helping people to be lifted up from being in poverty? But no, LeBron should add to that, to the bloated contracts that every single precinct in America has with localities. That is an absurd thing to say. And yet he still clings to, well, the reason the NFL is so successful is they're apolitical. That's not true in the slightest. It's just not. It's a preposterous statement on top of a preposterous statement. He should give money to the military. Why? Why should he give money to the military? That would just be empty virtue signaling, which, by the way, what's our military budget? Why does LeBron need to give $5 million to the military? Like, what are we talking about here? You feared David Stern. So that's why the NBA was surpassed? Because Paul Tagliabue feared David Stern? Because Pete Rozelle feared David Stern? It's ridiculous. And then the last point about Black Lives Matter. Yes, they swindled money. Terrible thing. Awful thing. There are also local chapters that are doing great work. So to completely crap on the entire movement because those people stole money is an awful take. And I wish you wouldn't conflate the two. Speaking of, this guy, Vincent Oshana, I've never heard of this guy. That's no disrespect, by the way. This is my first time seeing him. And he somehow meshed the NBA to Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney. I mean, honestly, I could spend another few minutes breaking it down, but that kind of tells me all I need to know.